Hi, Mr. Sullivan. I don't know if you remember me. I had met you. I was working at Kalari Taverna before it shut down for the COVID, and you had come in, and I had told you I'd contacted you shortly before. Um, and you said, I'm just a simple lawyer. And that you convinced me more. I think you're the lawyer I need. My father was just a simple doctor as well. Uh, anyway, I think I might have surprised you when I said, oh, I've had my eye on you for a very long time. In fact, I came across your profile, I think it was 2010, but I was, working on other things that wasn't really in your area. That was in family courts. That was at the very beginning of my research. I'll go into that a little bit later. Um, anyway, so I'll kind of tell you who I am. Um, because I think a lot of people in this town, some people remember me, the old timers from the 80s. Oh, well, remember me, I guess. I worked for Senator Bennett Johnston for 5 years, from 81 to 85. And I also went to GW and then worked in the financial markets. So anyway, uh, I did originally come to Washington in 81. I was an intern while I was in college in GW. I really wanted to get into politics, but more in the international arena and, helping people. I didn't want to get into all the political BS. Then I just got very, very delusioned with what I saw on Capitol Hill. And then when I finished, I changed from a political science to a business major and then ended up working in the stock market. I was there in the 87 crash and I was like, oh Lord, you people are no better. You're even worse. Then I packed my bags and I left to go back to Europe, to Paris, um, to find myself. And I eventually did, as a mother, and I was a expat trailing spouse to a Spanish French banker. He worked for Banco Bilbao Vizcaya Cantabria in Spain, and we were expats. We got married in Madrid. I'd met him in Paris, then it's a long story, went back to Miami, then back to Paris, and then we moved to Madrid, and that was all within about a year. In 91, we lived there from 90, and then 91 we got married, and then immediately we moved to Brussels. I was looking for a job. I found it at the time. We were constantly moving because he really didn't want me getting back into the workforce. And which, I mean, I don't regret because I'm glad I stayed home with my children. And that kind of gets me into where I am challenging the feminists and they're having it all and, being players in the game. So then my children were born in Brussels. We lived there for 4 years. Then we moved to Paris. We were there for 2 years again. This was again as expats. I had originally gone to Paris as an au pair, and I lived in a very small one of those rooms up at the top that they don't even have bathrooms. There's one at the end of the hall that's used by everybody. So I lived in Paris as a very, very poor student, and I lived in Paris in a very, very nice expat apartment near Parc Monceau. And I definitely tell people Paris, like all cities, is much, much nicer when you have some money. So then we lived there for 2 years and then went to Bogota and lived there for 6 years. He was a currency trader, and then by this time he became the second in command of the Treasury Department, and then got moved up at the end as the director of the Treasury Department of Banco Ganadero in Colombia. And I think took about 2 years to build his house of cards that destroyed his career. He crashed and burned, and I don't know all of the details, of course. I mean, as I say, I worked in the financial markets, and I've been watching what's been going on both sides of the Atlantic for forever since, and it's not a pretty sight. That's basically what destroyed him. This high risk, high yield, high risk, high yield, high risk, high yield, which started really back in the 70s. I would say Mike Milken was the first, and he was smart. It was genius what he did. Like many of them out there. Just because you're a genius doesn't mean you're a moral, upstanding person. As I even found out with, you know, my own husband, but you know, it took them 8 months of BBV headquarters to figure out what he had done in Bogota while we sat there. By this time, I had been very involved in the expat communities with the Americans, the Anglophones, the Francophones, and the Hispanophones. So I was even the president of, I've been much more involved with the French expat community because our children were in the French school, and the Spaniards. Oh, you talk about social climbing, oh, corporate people. I had been warned about staying away from the expat wives clubs with the Spaniards. Unfortunately, it was filled with old wives of BBVA on the board. So I had to go and you know, even though apparently they hated me because I had to always be doing something, I was told many years ago, instead of just hanging out at the country club with them. You know, this is the whole expat wives and corporate and diplomatic corps, which is only about 10% of expat people, or even, you know, immigrant or migratory people. But they do, it is important, these organizations, to help the incoming families with all of the and I'm talking about the mothers and the children. The corporations take care of the husbands and all of that. It's just the integration. So I was very involved in that, and I was the president of the French Bogota, which was not appreciated in a Merlock. That was fought, I think, from many sides. And I said, somebody else stand up and raise your hand. I'll give it to you. I'm just stepping in because otherwise we close up shop. So I became very familiar with what's going on there, and that's how I came up with the idea for global expats, which I'll send you some links. So after we left Bogota, we moved back to Madrid, the headquarters, and I mean, he had basically destroyed his career, and I said, look, I have this idea for this global expats. Let's, you know, just get on with your life, okay? That's a crazy life that you've been living. And the banking system, it's destroying everybody, not only the people who you know have their money in it, but the people who work in it from top to bottom. This is not a healthy life. So let's move on. You know, I had always been frugal. You know, my parents had just destroyed themselves financially. I'll get into my parents later on. So, you know, I had seen debt financing. It destroys you in the end. I don't care if you're a person, one person, a family, or a country, or a world. It doesn't work, you know. So we go back to Madrid, and I mean, he had never wanted me working out of the home. He had always been a controlling Spaniard. He had a very close-knit family. I mean, that's one of the things that I had kind of attracted to me, was this, you know, close-knit family, because mine was kind of all over the map. Little did I know at the time, later on I found out, well, yeah, this is Stockholm syndrome, because his mom is just as bad as mine. Maybe even worse, I don't know. So he unfortunately did not decide to move on. And his brother and cousin, his cousin had been from military of the Franco time, but then of the Guardia Civil in Móstoles, which is a southern suburban town of Madrid. And unfortunately, within Móstoles, Parla, Coslada, all of those they're immigrant towns, and there's lots of racketeering with the police, with all, you know, you have the bars, you have prostitution rings, you know, the drug, because a lot of these people are involved in, you know, the mulas. So you've got a lot of opportunity for corruption of the local police and courts, and it's happening. And the most famous of that is the Coslada sheriff, which around 2000 or so. And of course, it's the typical case. Everybody's absolved, and they even get promotions at the end. And then about 6 or 7 or 10 years later, when they're getting a little bit more tougher, because things are, you see the Epstein case coming out, the Weinstein. So slowly in the past 20 years, things are moving forward in exposing all of this, but it's too slow, too little, too late. And so anyway, that's going on everywhere. Well, unfortunately, I'm pretty sure now, it's all circumstantial, but yeah, I'm not a betting woman, but I would bet you $5 that the cousin who's been on the police force, he's been, I mean, believe me, this man is the scum of the earth. If this is going on, this is somebody who's going to be in there. Is human trafficking. And, you know, his brother has this company that never has any client. It just never made any sense how his brother was living with this supposed company. Tons of my, you know, receipts for buying computers, all sorts of stuff was passed through his company. I'm like, that was a big mistake. So, you know, 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 over the years equals 10. So what would a currency trader and banker who has crashed and burned, who has been destroyed, his ego has been destroyed, who always had an ego problem in the first place and a narcissism problem in the first place, totally destroyed him and has turned in I mean, I watched the decay up until 2000, from 2002 to 2008, and I know enough of this problem with my mother to know how it is decaying, and my children are still there. And it has had some horrible effects on them, even though they don't communicate with me. I lived through this, so I know the story. I know the story. So pretty much where he's involved in that, and that's why when even it was 2007, I finally, I was having so many problems with my web designer. Little did I know at the time he's in cahoots with the web designer, and why all of, you know, the problems, and they're hacking into my computer. Long story short, Microsoft, there was a business developer, George Morrison, his name was, who was interested in the project. Well, then they just destroyed everything. I mean, crashed everything. The website, my computers. He came and he said, if you don't stop this, I'm, you know, going to tell everybody, I'm going to take your children, throw you out on the streets, tell everybody you're a lifelong drug addict and heroin addict. What is going through your mind? I mean, you know, I was holding on until I could get the company started, because until I could get the company started, we were totally financially dependent on this person who just is you know, luckily I have some friends in Bogota, a doctor, who can say, yeah, I saw how he, uh, you know, I'm panicked. And he starts threatening to kill me because I say, no, I'm not, you know, dropping this. I had even showed him, I said, the website model that I came up with, the business model, this has $1 billion revenue potential from advertising. And Facebook and TripAdvisor and Yelp, and Yelp is not very successful, but these platforms, which is kind of the concept I had, except for expat families, you know, so my anchors are the grocery stores, the department stores, the shopping malls. Believe me, when you get to a new country or new city, you got everything for everybody. They say you spend a lot of money. It's like, yeah. And you know what? Shoppers out there get paid for all of this. So do event planners, so do cooks. That's my beef in getting back into the you know, job market. And everybody says I was a parasite and a useless, you know, parasite in society and didn't do anything. I'm like, well, you people are getting paid a lot of money for the stuff that I used to do for free. So unfortunately, then he starts threatening to kill me. Then he actually attempts to. And I know it's just a matter of time. I mean, I'm having in the court, they even ask them, well, are you, you know, you bolting your doors and putting bolts all over this? Yeah, and it's not working because he's breaking through them. Yeah. And I'm the one that was paranoid. I was like, you people are crazy. I mean, you know, and the domestic violence, you know, NGOs and assistance. I mean, that I just thought it was a joke in Spain. When I got back to the States, I was like, oh Lord, it's all of you. So I go through the whole process, and I mean, I know from the beginning. I mean, I know from my family how the dynamics of how this has to be covered up and how the victims have to be silenced. The case of my family, it's my poor father, and I have to say he just passed away, and he was 88, and I miss him dearly, but nobody can hurt him anymore, and nobody can silence me anymore with my fear that anything that I say will enrage, you know, them, and then it'll fall back on him. This is how it works. So anyway, so then I go through, you know, I had this, you know, I went and I filed a complaint because his family was saying, well, it is what it is. Que sera, sera, his mother said, and his father basically as well. I mean, even though he was threatening in front of me. And I, you know, as I say, he had lost it. He had never, ever, ever been physically violent or anything other than, you know, controlling and manipulative. In Spain, they play the cállate tonta game, and anybody would play that cállate tonta with me. Cállate tú eres el tonto, no soy yo. La tonta. Soy la sola aquí que tiene cabeza. I'm the only one who has a head here. You're the people who shut up. See, this is where the women come in the whole dynamics, you know, whether shut up to the victim or shut up to the perpetrator. So then we went through it, and I mean, I saw from the beginning, I think I went through 8 lawyers. I saw through the beginning they were just out to destroy me financially, and you know, my husband had all of this stuff, you know, this drug addict, and I mean, it was ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. And you know, I'm not a lawyer, but I think I have it in my blood. My grandfather was even the first white lawyer to successfully defend a black man in the Deep South in 1910. That was 7 years before Harper Lee's father unsuccessfully defended the black man. And I also have John Dickinson, who's in my family tree, and basically all my argumentation past 6 or 7 years, maybe less, has parallel, I don't know, I guess it started 2016, paralleled John Dickinson's argumentation against the British Crown trying to avoid war with Britain. And that's, I do a lot of paralleling there, and I'll get back into that later. So finally, you know, I see everybody's trying to destroy me. I'm getting no help from the NGOs. I go to my consulates because I have a French nationality, as do my children, as well as an American. They hang me out to dry. The French consulate's really up a creek on that one. I actually met with the consul. Oh Lord, I can't wait to see him in the international courts. So I'm getting nowhere with them. So I finally, you know, even some woman, a friend of mine from Louisiana, you know, we're all on Facebook by this time. You know, my God, take your kids and run. I can't do that. Then I get into international child abduction, and they really will throw me in prison, and that's the intention here. You know, first was trying to get her in a psychiatric ward. When that wasn't working, they tried, you know, the prison, and believe me, that's happening all the time. There's Maria Jose Carrascosa, a Spanish woman who spent 8 years in Bergen County Jail that had no jurisdiction, and she kept on filing for habeas corpus. I know she had a lawsuit at the end of it. I don't know. She's the same. Look, this is the problem. Even the victims, you know, she's a lawyer herself. All they do is cash in. I mean, how many people are writing books, and it's all about their personal tragedies. And if you go on Facebook, all of them have a Facebook page, save, you know, my child, save my child. And it just, and when I got back to the States, I got involved in that. So I did have to leave Spain finally. I mean, I've been defrauded of everything, thrown out basically with nothing. And he tried to get me. I think there was a kidnapping attempt right before I left Spain. And you know, I can't go back there. I got out alive that time, but I wouldn't make it out a second time without the protection of my government. So I really, even if I had the money, I can't go. So I come to the United States. My first challenge, of course, is getting a roof over my head. I do have some friends. She's Spanish. Who knows my husband? She was at our wedding. And I stayed with them for about a month. Then I got a month, you know, temporary. And there starts my housing problems in DC ever since. I think this is the 9th time I'm going to have to move.